Hello and welcome to this tutorial on pivot charts in Excel. So a pivot chart is, if you like, a chart of a pivot table. So in the previous lecture, I talked about pivot tables and how to create them. So if you haven't watched that already, you can go back and check it out if you don't know how to create a pivot table. But pivot charts, there are two ways of creating them. So one way is to obviously start from scratch. And another way is to use an existing pivot table. So if I already have a pivot table, I can create a pivot chart from it. So um, previously we talked about using the insert pivot table option to create a pivot table. So let me just create a pivot table quickly. Insert pivot table here. And the data ring is selected. I want the table in a new worksheet. So I click OK. And then I can drag department into rows and something that's numerical in the values. So amount is numerical. I can put that here. And I can also put expense type here. So, but actually expense type is not numerical, amount is. So let me move this back out. So we have a simple pivot table here for each department, the sales amount. So let's see, expense amount. So let's now try to create a um, pivot chart from this. So I click in here, and you can see this pivot chart here. So I can click on this, and I can choose the type of pivot chart that I want. I can choose a line chart, column chart, area chart, radar. So you decide which chart you want. So some of them might not be applicable, depending on the kind of data. And so I'll just use a simple line chart here, or column chart for them. Okay, so once you have that selection made, you can click OK. And by the way, within each visual, you have additional options like this, that. So you decide which of these, whether you want a default or some variation of it. Okay, so maybe I'll leave it at this one here. 3D stacked column and click OK. So this is my pivot chart based on the pivot table. So you can see that once the pivot chart is created, I have a new menu here. Um, so I have some additional formatting options up here. And if I go to pivot chart, analyze or design here, um, I have some additional options as well. So under the design, I can further customize this or style it. And so you can see the various options here. So let me make a slight adjustment here. Oh, maybe let's try this one. Okay, something like that. And then, so that the various customization options, and you can specify which chart elements to add, and various styling options as well over here. So you can change the color scheme um, by choosing one of these. So actually, in this particular case, um, as you move over the different options, you can see what it looks like when you make a certain change before clicking on it. So if I want the original, I can leave the click here. So you can change the color or the style over here. And obviously, if you right click here, you get additional formatting options as well. So I can format the axis. I can change the chart type, or select a different data set. Various formatting options are available when you right click. So depending on what you right click on, obviously you get. So in this case, I right clicked on the plot area, so it's giving me a format plot area. But if I right click on the axis, I see format axis here. So that's basic pivot chart creation. obviously I didn't need to create a pivot table first. If I came here and went to insert, and instead of pivot table, I went to pivot chart directly. I can either insert a pivot chart or pivot chart and pivot table. So let me just click pivot chart alone here. Select the data range, view worksheet, click OK. See, it gives me a pivot table, even even though I said pivot chart. So pivot table comes with a pivot chart. A pivot chart comes with a pivot table. So again, I can say departments in like this here and amount here. And voila, same thing. I didn't need to create a pivot table all at once. If I wanted a pivot chart, it will create a pivot table automatically. So obviously, I wanted for each department the amount. So let's see here. If I were to add expense type here, then I could, what I want to do for expense type, obviously, I don't want, if I want to see only the expense type, I can move the amount out, and then I'm getting a count of expense type. So the numerical values, I'm getting a sum, but for the non-numerical, I'm getting a count. Okay, so expense types, actually, each of these, I'm seeing pretty much the same count for each expense type in each department. So um, that's doesn't really show any much variation. But obviously, you still have options. If I click the drop down here, value field settings, I can change some to account to some or some other appropriate summarization. But in this case, expense type, I just go to the count. Okay, so actually, I could move this back and to make this the same as the other one. Yes, that's proof of concept. We can do the same thing in two different ways, either directly from the data by inserting the pivot chart directly, or we create a pivot table first, like in this case, and then we have uh pivot chart out of that. Because we create a pivot chart first, you get a pivot table. Okay, so I hope that makes it clear how to create a pivot chart from a data set, either from based on an existing pivot table or from scratch from the data set. So that's that. I'll see you in the next video.